footprints. In those days, the whole world had looked the same, gray and dingy, with the exception of a brief period in autumn when the trees flamed through the coal dust and then dropped their leaves to stand bare and clean against a clear blue sky. Now at least you were free of the coal dust, and you got to see the occasional unfamiliar face, especially with the new industry coming in. Jim Heffernan sighed. It was always the way. Some big company got you and everybody in the area all excited, got the local government to put up money to help them move in, and then when they did move in, they always managed to claw back as much of that money as they could for themselves. But at least he had this job. Better than nothing. Something to feed Flora and the kids, something to make him feel even a little bit useful. He was luckier than many who had been waiting for jobs and never got them. Even if this job was, in essence, no more than watching a large hole in the ground to make sure nobody ran off with it in the night. Yeah, he thought, and maybe someday I'll move up to watching the Brooklyn Bridge in case one of these super criminals from the papers tries to steal it. Think big, fella. He grunted with amusement at the thought and turned his attention back to the crossword puzzle. Yet another desperate attempt to keep himself awake. He hated the night shift, but the night shift was what they had been hiring for, and there wasn't much he could do about it, not with the mortgage to take care of and the kids needing new clothes for school in the fall. He stared at the much-corrected puzzle and tried to think. 7 down, dockside security, 6 letters, ends with ER. Hawser, he muttered, not exactly sure what a hawser was, but knowing it was something nautical. Except that, like most crossword answers, though the word fit 7 down, it made nonsense of 9 across. And of course, he had left the crossword puzzle dictionary that Flora had given him on the kitchen table at home. Then he heard a soft, quick shuffling right outside. It was way too loud for black flies. Jim Heffernan froze for an instant. Then he quietly laid the puzzle book aside, reached out to snap off the light, and even more quietly undid the flap of his holster. He hadn't been issued an automatic pistol, but his big Ruger Security 6 revolver held half a dozen very good arguments against any casual intruder doing something stupid. He sat very still for a few seconds, letting his eyes grow accustomed to the darkness, and listening to a silence that wasn't so much a lack of sound as someone, or something, carefully making no noise. "It's okay, Jim," came a voice from outside. "It's me." Jim let out a breath he hadn't noticed he was holding, but didn't bother turning the light back on again. "You shouldn't sneak up on a guy like that, Harry," he said. "What if I made a mistake one night?" "You?" There was laughter like a rusty saw in a log as Jim stepped out through the door. In the light of a bright half-moon, he could see where Harry Pulaski, the other guard on this shift, was leaning against the wall of the guard hut. He was grinning. "We both know you'd sooner pick your nose with that cannon than fire it at anybody." "Yeah, well." Jim hated guns. According to his supervisor, that made him one of the safest kinds of people to use them. He wasn't too sure about that. Being safe around yourself and your coworkers was one thing. Being safe up against some young punk with state-of-the-art firepower and no scruples about using it was something else. "Quiet round?" "What else?" Pulaski shrugged. "Still, it's an ill wind, you know? I'm set to lose another 2-3 pounds this week walking around in this heat if it keeps up." The sight lay spread out before them, monochrome in the moonlight. Not that there was much color about it even in full daylight. All but a few of the security lights had been turned out this late at night. Only the big floods around the graveled area where the heavy machinery was parked were still on. 40 years ago, this had been the biggest of several strip mines in the area, a huge concentric ulcer burrowing into the countryside, surrounded by heaps of spoil. Over the years, since the supply of coal ran out and the mining company went out of business, the local county government had made several sporadic, half-hearted attempts to re-landscape the place, but nature had proven more effective. Weeds and scrub plants that didn't mind the local coal dust-laden soil had moved in and made a great green terraced garden of it, where at least the various wild grasses seemed to prosper. Much of that green covering had been scraped away now as the digging started again. The site was easily half a mile from one rim of the hole to the other, with the guard hut perched high up on one side. Jim often wondered how quick their reaction was supposed to be if